Let's begin with Sefta Shekalim. Wish everyone atzlacha. The language is hard, but it's for 22 days, and for some reason, it's Shekalim is in here. Now, Shekalim is, when we think of Shekalim, we think of the collection of the Machzis HaShekel. You collect the Machzis HaShekel, Pashas Kisisa. You collect the Machzis HaShekel because you can't count people. Negev, it's going to cause a Magefa if you count people. We all know that. So we don't count people. We count objects. David, at the end of his life, counts the people. It's a big Magefa in Kal Yisrael. He forgot halacha. There's a punishment to him. So we count, and everyone gives the Machzis HaShekel, and then you have a clear-cut census. No one can give more, no one can give less. If people give more or less, you won't have a census. You won't know what. But now everyone agrees. You basically have the same amount. You have a consensus of how many people there were. Now, what was the shekalim used for, guys? It was used for buying the karbanis. It was used for buying the karbanis. It was the karbanis were bought, and the communal karbanis, the carbon tamid, the carbon musafim, any carbon yontif, all the communal karbanis were bought from funds that came from the lishkas. From the lishka, there's a lishkas of money there, and literally Fort Knox. And they 3 times a year they would go ahead and take it, and they would go trumas halishka, literally the separation from the lishka. They would separate it and bring it out. And so we discussed with Sefta Shekalim. Now, when did they begin the collection? They began Rosh Chodesh Adar. They began the collection on Rosh Chodesh Adar. That's why, guys, you read Pasha Shekalim on Rosh Chodesh Adar. That's why you read Pasha Shekalim. So we don't have it bisman hazeh. We give the Machzis HaShekel as a zeicha on the 15th, because on the 15th they started the actual collection. The kol went out on Rosh Chodesh, but to start sending it in, but the actual collection took place on the 15th. That's the main. Now we're going to see if the people from faraway lands, according to one opinion, would send it in the winter. They'd have. If you want to be part of the action, they would then on Rosh Chodesh Nisan they would use the old, and they would empty out the chamber. They would empty out the Fort Knox. They empty that out. That money would go for different things, as we'll see in the Masechta, and they would begin anew. That was the fiscal point of the year. Rosh Chodesh Nisan, all kabbanas had to be bought from the money that was collected that year. Rosh Chodesh Nisan was the cutoff point, right? That was April 16th. That was the day that it was over, and that money wasn't used anymore. They put that away, and they used new money for shekalim to buy new kabbanas. That's the thrust of the Mishnah. But along the way, the Mishnah is going to throw in a lot of different ideas, guys. So we're pretty good. Says the Mishnah. On the first day of Adar, mashmiyim al shekalim. The Gemara is going to say mashmiyim. They would be machris. They would call out on shekalim that people should go ahead and start. Each person is chayav to give the Machzis HaShekel. V'ala kalayim. Now again, a kalayim that the winter passed by. Maybe the field has kalayim in the field, so they would go ahead and tell people to go into their fields and check to make sure it doesn't grow 1/24. Ubachamisha asaboy karin es Megillah. On the 15th day of Adar, they would lay the Megillah. Usually, that was bekrachim in the cities that were walled from Bimei Yeshua Binun, as we all know. Umisaktin es hadrachim. After all, they didn't have cement roads, and they would have to go ahead and infrastructure had to be cleared up. So they would go ahead and correct the drachim. After all, everyone's going to be Oil Regel soon, the next month. In Nisan, everyone's going to be Oil Regel to Yerushalayim. The roads had to be in good shape. So there, the community got together, and they would go ahead and fix up the roads. Ves harachovos, in the streets. Ves mikvas hamayim, and the water over the winter. Again, they didn't have mikvahs that were closed in there. They were open mikvahs, and they had to take the refit, the different refuse that fell into the water. They would clean up. For oisin called sarchi harabim, they would take care of all the needs of the rabbim. The Gemara will explain what haven't we described that is sarchi harabim. We'll take care of the needs of the rabbim. Umitzayonim es hakvaros, and they would go ahead and demarcate the kfaros. After all, the people there would be graves, and you'd have kahanim, and they have to know where the mason were. And over the winter, it could have washed away the markers we had to go ahead and demarcate these graves. So therefore, it was necessary to go ahead and they would. We'll see exactly what they did, and to go ahead and make sure that people were squeaky clean and tahar b'shas they were oil l'regel. And now on the 15th day, we even have the guys go out on Kalayim. The guys on the first, they would announce, go to your fields and check. Now you had the meter maids. The meter maids would go out on the 15th into the fields, and they would make sure that these are guys who check, make sure you recycle your garbage, right? They'd make sure that the Kalayim was taken care of. Okay, so that's the Mishnah. So the first part of the Mishnah is the main part. Everything is brought in agav, as we'll see. Says the Gemara. Why Shekalim? Why did they call out on Rosh Chodesh Adar of all the times? Why they call it Rosh Chodesh Adar? Kadei sheyaviu Yisrael shekleim v'oinasam. In order that the Bnei Yisrael should bring the Shekalim in the proper time. V'titarim truma lishka min achadasha b'zman becha b'nisan. In order to separate, again, truma means separation. Trumas lishka is the chamber min achadasha from the coins. The chadasha, the new. Again, you can't bring korbanos from old coins. They would use it, we're going to see, from infrastructure, they would use it for different things. But you can't bring it, it has to be new. Every year, they redid it every year, and people got the Echa B'Nisan, and that's Echa B'Nisan. The Gemara is going to learn how to lean, but where do you know that from? Okay, says the Gemara. Umar. Now, usually Mar in Bavli means master, right? In Bavli means Omar. It's a silent aleph, okay? So Omar, Rabbi Shmuel, Bar Rav Yitzchak, and also you can meet a lot of new people, names that you haven't heard before, or the same person with a different name. So, Amar Rabbi Shmuel Bar Rav Yitzchak, Trumas Halishka Kitchilasa. The Trumas Halishka was that you separated in Nisan was like the beginning. Tichsiv, it says, Vayihi b'chodesh harishon. It was in the first chodesh. B'shana hashenis in the second year when they went out of Mitzrayim. Be'echel l'chodesh on the first day of the month. Ukam Mishkan. So we know the Mishkan was put up on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. The Mishkan was put up on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Not the first year after Mitzrayim, the second year after Mitzrayim, it was put on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. But Tani Allah, b'yoyim shehukam Mishkan, boy by yoyim, that day that they put up the Mishkan, nitmer hatruma, the truma was separated. So this, in other words, that we go ahead and separate the coins on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, we're just going ahead and emulating what was done the first year. That, in other words, it wasn't just that first time. This is l'dairis. This was done then, and this is the way it's always going to be. This is the way it was done then, and this is the way it's always going to be. Rabbi Tavi, Rabbi Yoshia, b'shem Kahana, Rabbi Tavia, Rabbi Yoshia, and the shame of Rav Kahana. Okay, Kahana, they used that's the same Rav Kahana, the same Talmud of Rav that we're accustomed to, right? The kind of Talmud of Rav. Nerma Khan, it says over here, Chadshay. It says over here, now we have two psukim. It says, Zois Oilas Chodesh b'Chadshay l'Chadshay Hashana. This is the oil you should bring on Rosh Chodesh l'Chadshay Hashana. That's a pasuk in Bamidbar Chav Ches, and then there's a pasuk in Shmos Yud Beis. HaChodesh Hazel Lachem Rosh Chodashim v'Yishanu Lachem l'Chadshay Hashana. So guys, it says over here in Nisan, it says Chadshay Hashana. So too, when it says Zois Oilis Chodesh b'Chadshay l'Chadshay Hashana, when it means b'Chadshay Hashana, just like by the mitzvah of Kiddush HaChodesh, it's Nisan. HaChodesh Hazeh, this was the first month. This is Chodesh. So too over here, when it says over here, Zois Oilis Chodesh B'Chadshay, it says Nisan. So that's Rav Tavi's limud. Says Rav Tavi, Rav Yoshi B'Shem Rav Kana, Nema Kan Chadshay, V'Nema Lahalan Chadshay. It says in Bamidbar Chaches, and it says in Shmos Yud Beis Chodesh. Ma Chadshay Shnema Lahalan Ein Moyin Le'olam Nisan. As it says, we counted the first Chodesh that we counted. HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem. It says Mefurish, it's Nisan. Af Chadshay Shnemar Kan. So too the Chodesh that it says by Oilis Chadshay is Ein Moyin Le'olam Nisan. Okay. Amar Rav Yuna, Amar Rav Yaina, Shavik Rav Tavi, Roisha the Nisan. He left the beginning of the Mishnah. He said the end. In other words, it seems that what he said doesn't tell the whole story. It doesn't. It says you start by Nisan. It doesn't tell you that it ends by Nisan. It doesn't tell you that fellas that you have to renew it every year. It doesn't tell you have to renew it every year. So maybe you could always collect the Nisan and constantly reuse all of the funds that it doesn't cut off, and you have to go ahead and disregard it for the next year's Kabbanas. Dal Kain Kahada Detani. Dal Kain is Loy Kain. No, it's not correct what he learned. Now, why? Because the Tani should have said, Zois Oilas Chodesh B'Chadshay. He should have said, this is the Oilah Chodesh B'Chadshay. Yachal, I would think, Yehi Torim B'Chol Chodesh Chodesh. Guys, since it says Chodesh B'Chadshay month in month, maybe you collect each and every month. maybe you collect each and every month, and you're not collecting just what? Just in Nisan. Talmud Loimer, it says, B'chodshoi l'chodshei, meaning what? B'chodesh echad hu toirim l'chol chodshei hashana. No, you don't collect each and every month. You collect in 1 month. In the month of Adar, you collect for the whole year, and begins in Nisan. Yochel beis chodesh sheyirtza. So now, I would think you collect in any month, right? Nemar kan chodshei v'nemar lahalan chodshei. Ma chodshei shnemar lahalan eimoinu le'minisan. Just like it says by a chodesh selachem, Rosh Chodesh is from Nisan. Av chodshei shnemar kan eimoinu le'minisan. So now you have the complete package. And then initially we just said, you collect it, but you don't know which month, and you didn't know that it ends there. But now by bringing in the whole brisa in the beginning of the pasuk, Rav Tavi says we now have the whole all the information we need. So we have 2 limudim, guys. We have either just like the first one, the Mishkan was set up in Nisan. So obviously the Karbanis were first brought in Nisan, and therefore every year the Karbanis have to be renewed in Nisan, just like the first year, the second year when we went down to Mitzrayim and Hukum and Mishkan. We set up the Mishkan in the second year, the first month, which is Nisan. We set it up. So too, all future Karbanis will emulate that exactly. Very easy. The second one is a Gezer Shava, Chodshei. The Chodesh, just like Rosh Chodesh is a Chodesh Zelachem, so Israel is Chodesh b'Chodshei, but the collection of the Karbanis is what is in Nisan. Now it says Mashmiyan al Ashkalam. What's the Lashon Mashmiyan? The Gemara is discussion. Mahu Mashmiyan. Rav Huna Ama Machrizin. Right. They Machrizin. Heichma da'at kimo shenemar, guys. The Heichman da'at means kimo shenemar. V'yitnu kol b'Yehuda u'b'Yerushalayim lahavi l'Hashem masas Moshe. And they went in Yehuda and Yerushalayim to bring to Hashem the masa, the load of Moshe, which means that the maxis hashekel. So therefore, it's the machrizin. That's what for eating kol b'Yehuda kol sasam kol simcha. Right, the kol went out. Tamantanina, guys. Tamantanina in Yerushalmi means we learned over there. Tamantanina we learned in the Mishnah. Okay, Yerushalmi is tamantanina. We learned in the Mishnah. Ein bein adar rishon la adar sheni. This is a Mishnah in Megillah, right? I was going to ask you Baruch. So ein bein adar rishon la adar sheni. Ela mikra Megillah umatanas lavyanim. That's what it says in the Mishnah Megillah. The only difference between the 2 months is the reading of the Megillah and giving presents to the poor. Rav Simon b'Shem, again, names that you're not familiar with. Neither am I. Rav Simon b'Shem Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Rabbi Simon says the name of Yeshua ben Levi, who we are very familiar with. Af shimu ashkolim v'kalayim b'neihem. You say the only difference is Mikra Megillah? You say the only difference is Matanas Lavyanim? No. In Adar Rishon, you do not call out the shkolim. You do not go out and say, get rid of the kalayim. The same, in other words, are you Rishalmi that says that what you did in Adar are also chilukim in between Adar Rishon and Adar Sheni, right? Kalayim, you're not going to call out an Adar Rishon, as we're going to see. It's much too much in advance. It hasn't grown yet. That's, guys, how do you know that? How do we know there's an Adar Sheni? Why is the month that we always do is Adar? Right?
The Omer is
the Omer, you have to bring the Omer. The earliest possible thing is the barley. The way you see the barley's not ripe, so you know that it's too early. So what do you do? The month before Nisan, it has to be born Tesai and Nisan, right? So Aber and Adar. That's why we want to delay it, to give it time for it to grow. So obviously you can't go ahead and tell the people get rid of your kalayim if it's too early. So that's another difference between Adar Rishon and Adar Sheni. Another difference is this the Kabbanis. It's the Kabbanis. You can start calling. You have 60 days. You have 2 months of Kabbanis that you can bring from the old funds, right? So therefore, says Rav Simon, in the name of Yeshua ben Levi, the chilik of the Rishalmi is also a chilik, just like the Babli says Mikra Megillah Matados Lavyanim, who adin Kalayim and Shkolim would be also a difference between the two. That's what Rav Yeshua ben Levi is saying.
the Babli is talking about firm, after, no? It's talking more of firm.
Well, again, it says Adar. It says Adar Rishon, Adar Sheni. I mean, that's in vain. It says that difference. Again, the Rishalmi and Babli, they can disagree all the time. We usually quote Rishalmi is usually quoted in Taisvis or usually quoted in Taisvis. In Arvi Pesachim extensively it was quoted in Taisvis, telling us different things. Okay. Says the Gemara. So if someone b'shem b'shum and Levi, avshim shekalim mekalayim b'neihem is a difference. Now, we'll be garbage as the Gra takes this out. Rav Chelbo, Rav Huna, and Rav. Guys, this means Rav Chelbo said the name of Rav Huna, who said the name of Rav, who said the name of Rav Chia Rabba. So we know Rav Chia was his uncle, right? Hakol yotzim b'yudalid shuzman kriyasa. Everyone is could be yotza the Megillah, the reading Megillah in Yudalid. That's the man of the kriya. That's the man of the kriya. Now, Amar Rabbi Yosi says Rabbi. That's really on the Amar base. Right? So Amar Rabbi Yosi the Yos. Yos means he's correct. Rabbi Shua ben Levi was correct in saying that a difference between Adarish and Adasheni is what? Is Shkalim and Kalayim. He's correct in saying that. You see, that's why the Gra took out the last thing it didn't flow. Klum Omer Mashmiim al Shkalim, right? What's the reason we said Mashmiim that you're machris to go ahead and bring the Shkalim? What's the reason you're machris al Shkalim? Loi Kidei Sheyaviu Yisrael Shekleim Ba'inasam. Is it not that they should bring the Shkalim in the right time because the Kabbanis are going to burn in the right time? Im at Omar the Adar Harishain. If you're going to say that, you go ahead, guys, and you collect your mashmiya machris, get your Shkalim together in Adar Rishain. Ad Kedoin is b'shasa shisin yaimin. You still got another what? 60 days. You got 30 Adar Rishon and 30 Adar Sheni, so it's too early. And what are you going to say? That on the Adar Rishon, you're going to go ahead and say, go check your Kalayim? What's the reason we say, go check your Kalayim? Obviously, you're able to recognize what, guys? The growth. It's too little. So Rabbi Yosi, Rabbi Shua ben Levi is correct in saying that what? That's the difference between Adar Rishon and Adar Sheni. Okay, so we have, so far, let's see what we have. If we have the Mishnah stating that they would go out and be machriz on Rosh Chodesh Adar and begin to collect on Tesvav of the what? The Shkalim. Why then? We said two reasons. We said either it's going to be the exact same as the Midbar, where the first collection, the Kabbanis were bought in Nisan. So who then over here? We said a Gezer Shava of Chadshe to learn out from Rosh Chodesh Rosh Chodesh, which is also the first was Nisan, and that would go ahead and say that. And they would be and that also that Hachraza took place in a leap year. It took place in Adar Sheni, not Adar Rishon. The Gemara now will turn its attention to the second din it brought in, the din of what not yet. Reb Chizkiah Shal. Now Shal is rhetorical. Shal miata b'nei Bavel mashmiin al hashkolim eiroishay shal chayrif kidei sheyaviu Yisrael shekleim. If you're telling me that the collection was done, you called out the collection, that they should be able to go ahead and get in time for Nissan. If you're in a faraway land, it's going to take you a long time. Try sending something. I sent a birthday gift to my grandson in October. It just arrived now in Eretz Yisrael. I'm telling you, just so much for the service. And Baruch Hashem for the tracking numbers, right? Okay, anyway, so the bottom line is, so they would have to, if they want to be part of the package, they have to send it early, guys. Right? If they wanted to do it, they have to send it early, yeah? They have to send it early. So Hisiv Rav Ula Kumar Rav Mani, Rav Ula Hosiv, he answered while sitting in front of Rav Mani. For Tanina, we said, B'shloisha prakim b'shana termim es halishka. 3 times a year, they would separate the monies from the Trumas halishka. We're going to see this. They're going to go through this. So in other words, guys, what would happen would be, look at me. They would get all the money in from all the shkol, matzah, shekel, from all over Eretz Yisrael. They bring it in. They put it in this big room, right? It was unbelievable how no one could go in that room. If you walked into that room, you had to be talking the whole time. You had to be barefoot. You couldn't have any hem. You couldn't have anything. It should be right that people should be that you're going to put some money in your mouth or put it. And vayisin the kim me'anashim. You should always be naki. The people should be chayshid you. You learn from Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe counted Levium. What is the age when you count Levium? 1 month. Yeah, Moshe could go into the tent to count the baby, right? Why? You have to be naki, you have to be clean. Okay, anyway, l'chol pachas, right? L'chol pachas. So therefore, So therefore, that you had the Trumas Halishka was they would take baskets, fill them up with coins, and they would use those coins to purchase karbanis. Good. This event took place 3 times a year. This event took place 3 times a year. Let's see. B'shloisha Prok and B'shana Tarmes Halishka. The Prosa Pesach, 15 days before Pesach. Proslins means prusa. Guys, we just had it by prusa, broken in half. Yes, remember? Prusa. That's the Lashon Paras comes from. So 15 days before. Paras Atzeres, 15 days before Shavuos. And Paras Chag, and 15 days before what? Before Sukkot. So, and 15 days before Sukkot. That's when it took place. So now the kasha is Amalei. It's part of the kasha. So Ula continues to say to Rav Mani, Nema Elon the Kroivim B'Prasa Pesach. The ones that are close sending B'Prasa Pesach. Elon the Rechukin, those who are farther away B'Prasa Atzeres. Elon the Rechukin Monoim B'Prasa Chag. So notice you went ahead and said, Rav Chizkiah, you said the following. You said that it must be that the people would send in from early on from the winter to get in. But 1 second, we learned this 3 times a year. And the half amina is those 3 times are for 3 time zones, right? The one people who are closer would be Pesach, Nisan. The one farther away would be Atzeres, and the farther away would be Sukkot. So you see that they come in different times. Nimtza fell is that the people who sent sent at the same time and they arrived late, right? They wouldn't have a piece of the action in the earlier Kabbanis. If you're sending Nisan and it's arriving Sukkot time, right? So means you don't have a piece of the action. Everything was brought from Pesach to Sukkot, right? So therefore, l'chayra. So he's questioning. So Rav Ula and Rav Mani is questioning. So Amalei, so Rav Mani told Ula, Kula ka'achas ba. Really, they were sent what? They were sent by the winter. Like you're right. Rav Chizkiah was right. They were sent. If you live far away, you would send very, very much in advance to make sure when it comes Rosh Chodesh Nisan, your machzis shekel is there. What about the 3 times? Why do they separate 3 separate times? V'lama amru b'shleisha prakim. Why they say these 3 separate times? They last place pumbi ledavar. They wanted to go ahead and publicize. Guys, it was a big event. They imagine they would go into the Fort Knox and take out the gold, and you'd see it publicized. And guess what? When did they do this, guys? B'shas the regal, correct? Why? So everyone went up. So the publicity was great. Everyone would see they have a piece of the action. Everyone would see they have a piece of the action of the kabbanis. Again, the machzah shekels for the purpose of kabbanis. So you sent it in early. If you're far away, you sent it in early enough to make sure it got there by Nisan. Everyone had to get there by Nisan. And these 3 things had nothing to do with time zones and had everything to do with publicity. Hey, take a look, guys. You all have a piece of this action. All these kabbanis are being bought, separated from your machzah shekel. Beautiful, beautiful. Shasa, but mamish in those days, guys, Aliyah Regal was mamish. You would see the Rabbi Shalom. They would be such as a Gemara, beautiful Gemara about the shulchan. They would take out the shulchan with the lechem apanim on it. You see the shulchan. They would open up the doors. You'd be able to look inside. It was just a tremendous hit. It was tremendous juice. Anyway, says the Gemara Vaita. Rabbi Yehuda Bar Pazi b'Shem Rabbi, that's Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. He's saying something interesting. He's saying that we're going to bring pesukim that show a little part of how should we say, a negative part of the Jews, that the Yetzer Hara could go ahead and get in your case. They knew, you live far away. You don't have to be announced. The announcer was people in Eretz Yisrael. It wasn't. They knew. Says the Gemara. Hey nikrav leinivis, right? How could you read this without trembling? How can you read this without trembling? L'toiva, when it comes to do something good with your money, it says what? Kol nediv leiv. Not everybody, but anyone who was generous of heart. L'ra, when it came to the ego, v'yisparku, kol everybody. So you see, when it comes to the Yetzer Hara, everyone gets involved. For the Mishkan, it was called the Divleiv. When it came to the eagle, yeah, the Eina. L'toiva vayetzi Moshe esa'am. Moshe had to talk the right. Moshe, it says, to Kabbalah the Torah, Moshe had to take them out. Vayetzi took them out. L'ra v'tigravnu elai kulchem. They all came themselves. Right, by the Meraglim. It says Karvu Heim Batzman, they came themselves. So the Toiva, Moshe had to go ahead and assist them. When it came to the Ega, when it came to the Meraglim, they all came themselves. The Toiva, Az Yashim Moshe, Ubnei Yisrael. Moshe had to go ahead and arouse Bnei Yisrael through him singing. L'ra, when it came to Meraglim, Vatisa Kol Eida, they all started crying, the whole Eida all at once. So you see the Koyach of the Eitzara guys, right? Amar Rab Chia bar Abba, Achein. It says, and this is a pasuk in Sfanya, they got up and ishchisu. They got up. You know, got up means they got up early. They got up early for the purpose of what of hashchasa. All hashchasa, all corruption was done with hashkama, right? Not the minyan. So Amar of Abba Baracha in we can't even comprehend the behavior of this ummah. It's hard to comprehend. Nitvayin le'ego. They asked for money for the ego. V'noisnin. Nitvayin le'mishkin. V'noisnin. They give for this. They give for this. You know, it's if you're going to give for both, it's not indicative of giving of generosity, guys. No. If you can give for a negative thing, right? I don't want to say, but the people who give tzedakah to one institution, you ever see people, they die, Jews who die, leave their money for dogs, they leave their money for hospitals, they leave money they give it for trees in Israel, they leave the money like for crazy things. Millions and tens of hundreds. I mean, they're rich Jews, but when they could leave it for yeshivas, they leave it for to a dog, right?
Endowments for colleges, also dog places.
Yeah. Okay.
Save the whales.
Right. Save the whales. Okay. Nifayin le'egel, v'naistin, nifayin le'mishkan, v'naistin. They would taveh the egel, they gave mishkan, they gave. Tani Rabbi Yosi bar Chanina, said Rabbi Yosi bar Chanina, he wants, Rav Aronson learns he's being chaylik on the previous din. Hodem as Nisan, we see they gave for the right reason when they gave for the mishkan. It says vasisa kapayris of tar. They made a cover for the aron, a kapayris of tar. Yavi zav shel kapayris, v'yechapa al zav shel egel. Let the zav for the kapayris come and be mechav for the zav for the egel. So in other words, the first Rav Chia bar Abba is learning that it was a negative thing Rav Abba Ra'acha was learning it's a negative thing that look, they'll give for this, they'll give for this. Whereas opposed to Rabbi Yosef Rechadin, he's learning, no, what are you talking about? That they gave for the Mishkan was for kapara for the egel. Let the zahav of the kaparis over the Torah be mechapa for the egel. So he's learning about it as again, no one else learns this way. This is the way Rav Aronson is learning, and I think I like the pshat very much. Rav Chagi b'shem Rav Shmuel ben Achmeni. Rav Chagi in the name of Shmuel ben Achmeni. Gimel Trumas Nemru b'Parsha Zois. In the Parsha of Truma in Sefer Shmos, it says 3 lashonos of Truma. It says Trumas Adonim, Trumas of the sockets, the Trumas Shkalim, Trumas of Shkalim, the Trumas HaMishkan, and Trumas of the Mishkan. Abel b'nei Yisrael v'yichli Truma, so Trumas Adonim. Meyes kol isha sheyidvenu liboy, tikhu es Trumasi, said Trumas Shkalim. V'zois ha-Truma shetikhu mitam, so Trumas HaMishkan. Now, what was it used for? Trumas HaMishkan, the separation of the months for the Mishkan, was used for the actual construction of the Mishkan. Masha Yirtzu Yaviu, whatever they wanted, let's be guys to grow, they would bring. Trumas Shkalim lekarbin. Masha Yirtzu Yaviu k'tei yad kulin shavin. If the shkalim for the kabbanis guys, listen to this. If as long as they all brought the same amount, it would be okay. In other words, the machzah shekel, the counting of people is one thing, but let's say we all decided this year we're all giving a full shekel. As long as everyone gives that amount, it'll be okay. Right. As long as it's all universal. As long as it's universal. Trumas Adonim la'Adonim. Right? The Trumas Adonim la'Adonim. There it says, the rich should not give too much. Vadal lo yamit. That says Babat with Trumas Adonim. So that's in Parshas Truma. Amar of Oven, after Parshas Hazois, even Parshas Kisisa, Nemaba Gimel Trumas. It says also 3 Trumas. Matzah Shekel Trumas Lashem, Yitain Trumas Hashem 2, Litain es Trumas Hashem 3. And that ends the discussion of Shkalim. That ends the discussion of Shkalim. Now we're going to discuss. It said that on the 15th day in the large cities, they would read the Megillah. Guys, could you read the Megillah on let's say, a large city in the 15th, they read in the 14th of the Yaitza? According to Yerushalmi, you are Yaitza. Let's see. B'tesba koyin b'yasam Megillah b'krachim. Loi kein amar Rab Chelboi Rav Huna, Rav B'Shem Rav Chia Rabba. Again, you got that, guys? Rav Chelbo, in the name of Rav Huna, in the name of his Rebbe Rav, the name is Rebbe Rav Chia Rabba. That's the Tanna Rav Chia, who's the Talmud of Yehuda Nasi, the Talmud of Rebbe. Hakol Yoitzin v'Yedalit Shus Zman Kriyasa. See, this is what we took out in the Amud Aleph. This is what the Grot took out in the Amud Aleph. I told you, it didn't make any sense over there. Over here, it makes sense. Everyone's Maida that if you're laying on your Dalit, even in the Krachim, even in the big cities, everyone's Maida Yaitza. Labo, so why did it say Tesvav? Guys, it's mashma you dafka after laying on Tesvav. Why did they say Tesvav? V'Yaitza on your Dalit. Labo el lamdecha shekol ha-mitzvahs ha-nehegis ba'ad ha-sheni ein ha-nehegis ba'ad ha-rishon. We just wanted to say that all the mitzvahs that are noig ba'ad, they want to tell us a chilik between the two. And in Ada, there's no Tesvav, Megillah Tesvav. It's only an Ada Sheni, not Ada Rishon. But not to say that Dafka Tesvav. You were listening, guys. You look at it. You were listening. He was listening Tesvav. What Tesvav? Of course, Tesvav Shkalim, Tesvav what? Tesvav Shkalim, Tesvav Kalayim, Tesvav Megillah. When Ada Sheni, as we said. So that's why, but not to say you're not Yaitza, you're Dalid on. In other words, the reason it's listed as Tesvav is to put it in the same category as Shkolim and Kalayim, which are only in Adar Sheni. So we mentioned Tesvav in Adar Sheni, but not to say that your Dalid wouldn't work. Not to say your Dalid wouldn't work. Rabbi Yossi. Rav Acha Havi Yasmin, they were sitting. Rabbi Yossi Rav Acha le'mistabra el l'shavar, only bid the eved. Avalava l'chatchila loy. In other words, the good you would be Yotza, you're Dalid, but that's only bid the eved. L'chatchila, the time of laning, guys, is when? Tesvav. Time of laning is Tesvav. Now, Iva Tani Makam Shinagu l'kroisa shnei yamim koirasa shnei yamim, a place where you know to go ahead and lane on Yudalit and Tesvav. Now, guys, if you're Yotza on Yudalit and Tesvav, why are you landing on Tesvav? If you're Yotza, you're telling me that if you land on Yudalit, you're Yotza Tesvav, right? So why in a place, why would you land twice? So Amalei, Af on a Savakain. We also hold like Rav Chelboy, Amarav Mana, V'yos. It's good. Now, why is it good? Ilu miyakra ba'arba asa. If you read on the 14th, and then he would go and read on the 15th, would you listen to him? In other words, it's not ma'akiv. Because if guys, listen, guys, if you're going to say that you can't lay on 15, Pirish. Guys, really, guys, listen up. Here's where we're learning. Really, when it says the Mishnah that you're laning on Tesvav, it doesn't mean only Tesvav. You could also lane on your Dalit. That it's listed as Tesvav because Kalayim is on Tesvav and Shkolim is on Tesvav. That's why. Got it? But not to say Dafka Tesvav. Right. Says the Gemara, but that we said, your Dalit, that's only B'di'evet. L'chatchil is Tesvav. Says the Gemara, okay, we agree. So one person said, but if you're laying on your Dalid, you have to lay on both. There's some supi. Why do you have to lay on both? So the answer is, the reason you have to lay on both is, if you lay on your Dalid and you say you're not going to lay on Tesvav, in the future, people will make a mistake and think, 1 second, in a world city, it's going to be your Dalid. So the reason you're laning is not to be Yetz the Megillah. The reason you're laning is that it shouldn't go ahead and uproot the whole din of Tesvav. You shouldn't forget it's a din of Tesvav. But not that you're not Yotza. No, the other meaning of the Gemara is you're not Yotza, therefore you don't know, so you're laning. You don't know if the city was or wasn't, so you're laning both. No, that's not the reason you're laning both. The reason you're laning both is to ensure, 1 second, there's a din of Tesvav. Because if you're Yotza, you're Dalid, it might become universal throughout Kal Yisrael that your Dalid becomes the day. So, I don't know the halachas.
That's the same thing as
saying you make 2 brachas. Yeah, before I would assume you make 2 brachas, man. Brachas. What's the word bracha? You make 2 brachas. Again, you make a bracha. Make a bracha.
How is that different than saying you have to read it both days in one city?
What?
You said the exact same thing.
What do you mean? He
If
said
you're not sure
no.
whether it was walled city or not, you're laying on both days.
Right.
And you're always laying on those both days in the future.
Because let's say you just
What
landed
are you
on
afraid
your
of
let's you landed on your dalid. And if it means like this, if you land on your dalid and not on tesvav, right? It may come out that what it's a walled city, or you may forget the din of a walled city because you're landing only on your dalid. So to ensure that it's always going to be in vogue that on the 15th we will land it that day to ensure that people will know that on a walled city you land on tesvav, but not to say if you were landing your dalid you're not yaitza. I'm only landing the second time is to make sure that you don't forget the din tesvav.
But in a walled city or a suffix in a walled city, you're always going to land on your dollar and that's all. Right?
No.
What are you afraid of?
No, in a suffix you will, but a walled city. Let's say you land in your dollar right now. Let's say you land in a walled city in your dollar, right? Right. But you have to land. You still have to land in tesvav. Why? You shouldn't forget the halacha, but not to say you won't be yaitza. No, the havamina of the Gemara is I'm landing.
Suffix city, it's always going to be. A
So now, yeah.
Always going to land.
No, again, you're laying there again. If it's a suffix city, but again, what we're worried about is that this establishment of forgetting tesvav. That's all.
You understand what I'm saying? A suffix city will never change the status of a suffix city.
Correct.
So when will it ever only land on your
No, but I'm saying following. No, if you're laying on here, if you're laying there, you may come to laying in on a tesvav city on your dalit. No, it's once you lay in your dollar and you say, "What's it? This is a city. Maybe it's a tesvav. A person will think it's a tesvav, and he'll say tesvav that. That's what you're worried about." No, here's the dialogue. Is simply this: the dialogue is, how can you tell me that you yaitza with your dollar for tesvav? You have to lane twice. The answer is the second laning is not that you're not yaitza your dollar. You are yaitza your dollar. Just you may come to forget tesvav. Tani Rab Shimon Gamliel Lema mitzvah hanaheges ba'ada sheni. The mitzvahs that are noig ba'ada sheni are not noig ba'ada grishon. Chutz me hesped v'tainus. The issue of hesped and tainus are noig both. Shein shavim b'zeh b'zeh. They're both equal in ada rishon and ada sheni. Rav Boy, Rav Yirmiyah b'shem Rav Simon b'shem Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Halacha Rav Shimon Gamliel that the halachas of rishon and sheni are equal. Rav Huna. Now, what would this be? What's the mitzvah that noig ba'ada sheni? Say the parshios. In Ada Rishon, you won't have the 4 parshios. Mikra Megillah, you won't have an Ada Rishon. Matanas Lavyoni, you won't have an Ada Rishon. You won't have the Ada Rishon. And according to Yerushalmi, you won't have Shkalim and Klayim. So, and he says the halach is like that. Rav Huna Rabba did Tzipura. He was at the name of the place called Tzipura. Amar Hinig Reb Chia B'Tzipurin Kahad Reb Shimon Gamliel. He was knowing in Tzipurin like this Reb Shimon Gamliel that the only things they kept the same was hesped and tainus. Like Amar Ela Hinig Ha'alach Aloi. You notice the difference between minig and a right. Aval the Indian shtaros kaisvin Ada Rishon. The Indian shtaros they would write Ada Rishon. They would write Rishon. For Ada Sheni Stam they would just write Ada. You know, in shtaros they would date them. So Ada Rishon they would write Ada Rishon, and Ada if they wrote Ada Stam it meant Ada Sheni. Review the Ada Rishon Stam Ada Sheni Tina. But they would leave on Ada they would leave Ada Rishon Stam. In other words, he disagrees. And Ada Sheni they would put Sheni, which makes sense, right? Because how would you know? I mean, how would you know, right? How would you know? So they say like they found the coin. They found the coin and they knew it was false because it said Bias Rishon.
Because they knew they wouldn't be in. They knew.
Okay. Anyway, misaknin es hadrachim. They would go ahead and correct the roads, v'es harachovos and the streets, v'es mikvayis hamayim, v'oisin kol tzarchei harabim. Elohein tzarchei harabim. These are the tzarchei harabim. These are one of the things tzarchei harabim. How would they take care of? This is fascinating, guys. Dana dini mamnis. Any court cases that had to be taken care of, any monetary cases, they would take care of. Dini nefashos. Got to have a guy in death row to take care of dini nefashos. Dini makis. Poidin erchin. Erchin is sources. Erki alai. The charamim chayrim, right? The ekdeshos, the magdish, all these things we take care of. Umashkeres asaita. You think the saita right away? No, sometimes it gets delayed, right? Yeah, the docket gets backed up. Mashkeres asaita. V'safrin esapara. If they had a paraduma, they would burn. For orphan egla rufa, they would decapitate that rufa. They found a dead body between 2 cities. For rights in Eved Ivri, guy wants to stay forever. They would go ahead and the Eved Ivri, they would all his ear. Umitarin esam mitzaira. Can't believe this guy mitzaira is. Yeah, I can't believe he's waiting so long. They would take off the covers from top of the water pits. They wouldn't return them till the winter.
After that, it's the only time they did it, or they did it always, and maybe because of the time they were going, they did it to take care of it before the.
Which one? Which case of the water?
I'm thinking the
The other things I don't know. They're called Tzarchei Rabin, but it's hard to imagine that there's a din of Inuyat din that they would keep up a person overnight. I don't know what this means. Like din in a fascist. This is an Inuyat din. You have to pass in a din. I'm not. I need an explanation over here. Okay. You have to in other words, these things will come to an end, but again, I can't imagine leaving some of these people around. It's like, can you imagine Mitzayra, he's sitting Budget Yeshev, he's also living with his wife, he's keeping around. It's hard to understand, but these are kin Tzarchei Rabin. Now the Mishnah also Mitzayin ala Kvaros, they would go ahead and demarcate the Kvaros, right? They would go ahead now. Like Kvar Tzayna Me'adar, why weren't they already done an Adar? This is telling me that what this Mishnah that you just mentioned is speaking. One second, I skipped the line. Yeah, that's why it made no sense. Tom and Tanina, we learned over there. Now over there, guys, is Moed Cotton. The first Mishnah Moed Cotton. Mashkin Beis Hashlachin. The Beis Hashlachin is a pace that knows what can you do in Chol Hamoed. You're able to go ahead and put water in a field that's irrigated. You're able to do it because it's double hefet. You can lose it. You can lose your money because it needs irrigation. So you're able to go ahead and irrigate the field, even though you're working Chol Hamoed. I have some ruba. Umitzayin al kafaris, and you mitzayin kafaris. Now this is Chol Hamoed, correct? This is Chol Hamoed Pesach. When did we take care of kafaris? On the 50th day of Adar. Fred the Gemara, like for Tzaynu mi Adar. What do you mean you take care of them on Chol Hamoed Pesach? Tezayin, right? Pesach, Tezayin Nisan. You already took care of the mesim of the kfarim on an Adar. V'tipata means v'tifta means to give an answer, right? Sheyarid shatav shal geshamim. Speaking where there was a shatav of mayim, v'shatfu it went ahead and it flooded it. V'yotzin out. Okay, then that's why you went and checked again that it was Yitaka did it in an Adar. Well, let's say there was a late rain, right? And took it away. You came and demarcated again. V'yotzin out kalayim. They would go what in kalayim. They would go Chol Hamoed. They would go in the kalayim. What do you mean they go out in Kalayim in Chol Hamoed? We already said they went out in Adar. So what's the answer? It was very late. And again, the same answer, right? In Adar they went out and there wasn't any. It was delayed the crops from growing, so there wasn't any Kalayim, and therefore you would recheck in Chol Hamoed.
Very late means Adar base?
No, very late means Chol Hamoed. Yeah, this means Efela means you went out in Adar, Aaron. You went out in Adar, wasn't there, and now you're going out in Chol Hamoed. So here's the source. Where is the source for it seeing that on a grave you have to put it seeing? Where's your source? So Reb Brechia, so no, it's Yerushalmi. Reb Brechia of Reb Yaakov bar Yitzchak b'shem Reb Chunya de Bras Chavron. That's the name of a place, the Bras Chavron. Reb Yosi Omerle Reb Yaakov bar Acha b'shem Reb Chunya de Bras Chavron. Reb Chizkiya, don't get excited. Reb Uziel bereid Reb Chunya de Bras Chavron b'shem Reb Chunya de Bras Chavron. V'tamei tamei yikra. Why does the Mitzvah call it tamei tamei yikra? Because she had tumah karoil el chavipia. The tumah should be in his mouth and say separate. So Mela, what do you guys would do? When mitzayin the graves, that it's calling out. The grave is calling out, stay away, stay away, stay away. Rav Aliyah b'shem Rav Shmuel bar Nachman. It says va'avru ha'oivim ba'aretz, a pasuk in Yecheskel. The oivrim, guys, listen to the lashon because we're going to dash each word. Va'avru ha'oivim ba'aretz. They went through the land. V'ra'a, and what did they see? Etzim Adam ubana etzlei tzion. They saw the etzim of a person. They built etzlei, not on it, but etzlei next to it at tzion. Etzem, when it says etzem, you can shemitzayin al atzomais. You go ahead and you mitzayin on a tzomais. Now, guys, just be careful. Usually you say an etzem kisoir is only mitama maga. It's not mitama tumas oil. You need over here. You need roiva akav, roiv binyan, or roiv minyan. Right? You need some. Etzem means you mikan shemitzayin an adam. Guys, so that's the word etzem. Adam. What's the word adam? Mikanshem mitzayim ala shidra al gilgoylis. You go ahead and you'll make a tzeichin, you'll make a sign on a shidra, on a spinal column, gilgoylis, and a skull. It says ubana etzleit tzion ubana mikanshem mitzayim al gabi evan kavua. It has to be a binyan. The evan has to be set. Not something that can be washed away. Because it's an evan that's loose, it itself will go ahead and become tamei and create more tama. Then it said etzloi next to it. Lemokam taira. In other words, it's not on top of the grave. It's next to the grave. In other words, we don't want you. If you're there, you're tahar. You know, it's guys. If you put it on top of the grave and you end up there, you're mild. You have etzloi. It's got to be like etzloi next to it. To what?
The warning track.
Yeah, the warning track would be good. Tzion, when it says tzion, mikan litzion, all the tumah above that when mitzayin the tumah we make a sign. Umatzah even achas mitzienes afishem mekaymin kain hamal aleim tamei. Even it's umatzah even achas mitzuyonois, an even achas one stone, right? If you find one stone, guys, that and umatz even achas mitzuyanos, afa pisheim mekaymin kain hamal tamei, right? And yomer meis mitzuya b'hayonasen tachteha. If you find one stone, then we're going to say the mace is underneath it, guys. Another one stone, the mace is underneath it. Hayashtayim. If you have two stones, hamal aleim tahar. If you go over the stones, you're tahar. Ubeneim tamei. Guys, watch. Let's say look at my hands. If you're going to find one stone, what did the guy do? He only has one stone, so he put it on top of the grave. If you have two stones, the grave is in between, and if you mal on the stones, it's tar. That was his way of demarcating. So if it's only one, you know that there's only one grave. Like this, you know that the grave is in between. That you mal like that, the grave is in between. Let's go weiter. If you find if you have two, then your malaleim is torah between tamei. If it was chayresh, if it was plowed, right? Then it will be yechidus, like Mendy wants to say, beneim tahor u'siyosem tamei. In other words, between them it would be tahor, and sfivas hachayresh, around the chayresh, the area, we would say that it is the evan. That's what Chaim says. Sfivas hachayresh, around the chayresh, around the plowing, you'd have the evan. It would be tamei. Tani, emet sign al abasa. You wouldn't put it tzion on basa. Shemin sakal abasa because the basa was in the sakal, and therefore it's not there anymore, and you don't have to worry about tumas soil. Rav Yusta bar Shuman, boy kumei Rav Mana. Rav Yusta bar Shuman asked in front of Rav Mana, v'leinimtzim etame tyrus lamafreya. Won't you find out that if the tamei, if you're not going to even sign the tamei, isn't that being the tamei lamafreya? Guys, you bury the meat until the point of the time where it gets decomposes. So the chayra, you're going to be spreading tumah, right? So happy and happy mitzayin it. Better to go ahead and have a problem that's going to disappear rather than one that remain all the time. Yes, this is the space I might say. Bye bye.